collectible spot. We're having a look at the Hot Toys Avengers Age of Ultron Ultron Prime 6-scale figure. With a release date of May to June 2016, if you guys are interested in picking this guy or pre-ordering this guy, Spot will put the link down below and you can head over to Sideshow Collectibles. Box-wise, well, you're going to get a little bit bigger of a box than a standard 6-scale figure, as Ultron here is going to tower over some of the other figures that you might have in your display cabinet. Though I wasn't crazy, to be honest, about how Avengers Age of Ultron turned out. The design of Ultron, a little iffy, I gotta be honest. I was extremely excited still to get this figure released. And certainly now as he is in hand, I can't wait to get this guy out of box. But the box is a little bit taller, like I had mentioned, than other 6-scale figures. A good portrait or good image there of Ultron, along with the very large A that makes up the pretty much half of the box itself. Spinning the box ever so slightly, you can see how that same portrait carries over to an arm that comes up to the top corner. You can probably also see too, there's no strings attached to Ultron. As for the back of the box, you've still got that carried over Avengers A, Ultron Prime MMS 28416 scale collectible figure. It does have a warning choking hazard, as well as a cast and crew responsible for producing this figure. Spot's going to take himself a break and get this completely out of box, but when we come back, we're going to get a better look at the Hot Toys Avengers Age of Ultron Ultron Prime 6-scale figure. There's more heading your way, guys. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. With Ultron Prime, the first thing we'll have a look at is this Avengers-shaped display stand that comes with the figure. Not a bad-looking display stand. I'm trying to think of actually if any other 6-scale figure has come with this release, but I'd love to see that with future releases. Now, it does light up. It takes 3 AAA batteries, but unfortunately, Spot does not have AAA batteries. I thought I had some in the house, and sure enough, I don't. But this stand would light up, take my word for it. Display stand looked quite nice though. It's a little on the raised side, which might make getting him to stand flush on it might be a little bit more difficult. But a trade-off for something like this, I'm willing to take that. It does have an adjustable neck as well, so at least getting him to stand won't be an issue. The neck also is adjustable on this too, so you can adjust it depending on what way you want to display old Ultron here. The figure is a towering spectacle of design here. Primarily, he is cast or presented here in a silver treatment. There's really not a lot of coloring to be said for the figure, which I guess could be maybe one little nitpick I could make about the release of Ultron here. As impressive as he does look, and getting him in the silver is super cool, wish that there was maybe just a little bit of wash going on here. It kind of reminds me of the die-cast RoboCop that was also released by Hot Toys. Primarily was that same sort of color, but a figure like this so really could have a little bit of that dark wash just to kind of bring out some of the details that are on the piece. You can really see what I mean here with like just the sheer level of detail that they've put into this figure. It looks great, but I think like a dark wash, just a little bit of a darker, maybe about on the same level of color as this, maybe just one little shade darker. In some of those little recessed areas really could have made a lot of these little intricacies certainly pop in design. Perhaps maybe just a little bit of a debate among fans of certainly the Marvel movies. Not everybody was crazy with the design of Ultron, feeling as if he looked a little bit more human, a little bit more in line with like the new Transformers movie, where comic-wise he certainly was a more simplified face. Almost, I always thought of Ultron looking at him that he looked more like a skeleton's skull if that was done with a metallic rather than bone. That being said though, I have to admit, watching Ultron, Age of Ultron a couple more times, I've grown more in love with the design where I didn't like the design so much before. I think I have to say it has grown on me since. Despite my initial ifs, not sure about how I like the design, Hot Toys still did a fantastic job of recreating how Ultron appeared, at least in the movie, here in 6 scale treatment. Just all the little lines and stuff that they've put into the face. I feel like these little areas here, like in the comics, would have been much more recessed. In the movie, though, they opted to kind of fill them in a little bit more, which I guess is not probably something that fans liked as much. One thing that you notice about the 6 scale figure release of this guy is that his mouth does open and close. Just a little bit. Just enough to get a little bit of speaking going in there. He also has teeth, which, again, is something I think a lot of people weren't as crazy about. But taking it from the source material and strictly speaking it from a source material, Hot Toys did a stellar job on giving this guy a likeness that looks like he was taken right from the movie. What will also enhance this guy, being that he is so silver, is the fact that he does also have light up. He has lighting up options in his arms, his torso, and his head. Let's tackle the head first. What you want to do is just take this little panel here, and if you do struggle taking it off, the folks over at Hot Toys also give you a little tool that, let me tell you, has come in handy quite frequently. There's a little switch right there. Batteries, you have to put in when you get the figure. You have to put the batteries in, but we'll go ahead and switch this on. Very, very small switches on these. And there you have Ultron with not only his eyes lighting up, his eyes being, well, the eyeballs themselves are red, and then he's got the white pupils, but also, just a little bit, his mouth does light up as well. What I like about the head light up option, though, is the little slots, the areas around the panel that you would have taken off, do light up red. Just imagining that. We'll cut the lights, don't worry, we'll cut the lights. But imagining that with lower lit conditions, you can really imagine how that would stand out. For Ultron's torso, what you want to do is flip it around to the back here, and you want to just pop this section off, right there. Pop that off. Go ahead and switch the light switch on for that. There we go. And we'll put that back in place. You can see how the torso lights up right on the underside. Actually, there's a good shot of it right there. This whole area on the inside lights up a bright red. It's basically like just a sphere here that lights up. And even on the insides of his arms, you can see how that area lights up there. Once we get the arms going, then we'll cut the lights and see how well he shows in the dark. Access his arms. Just take this little plate off here, and there's a little battery compartment. Snap that into place. It doesn't project as much. It's only projecting right around where his robot bicep will be, and also areas in his forearm. However, when you cut the lights, you can really see a lot of Ultron shining through. His eyes piercing in white, a bright white light. And really the majority of his lower torso lit up in red, the little bicep areas on his red. Just tipping the figure up so you can see what I'm talking about there. It's actually quite bright. Quite bright. There's a close look up at his face. See how the eyes light up. We'll kind of open and close his mouth so you can see. I was actually not expecting it to be as bright as it ended up being, but it's quite rather impressive, all things considered. Now, due to Ultron's just sheer size, he doesn't really come with any other accessories other than the display stand that we had a look at. And of course, accessories, if you really want to count it as accessories, he had the light up features as well. But that's more a feature than accessory. But he is a lot taller, and that's the key to what makes this figure do as well as it does. It's tall. Ultron could not have been serviced and been given a proper service, I should say, as a lower, smaller figure. Ultron is tall. He is tall in the movie, and equally so, a 6 scale figure of him should also be tall. And what really a better size comparison than having him compared next to his dad. There's Iron Man right there in the Mark 46 suit. You can see how much taller Ultron is versus Tony. I mean, he's basically almost half another torso taller than a standard 6-scale figure. And even proving then how much taller he is still, there he is next to the 6-scale release of the Avengers Black Widow, who really is smaller than Tony anyways. He is almost a third taller than Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow figure here. So really, Ultron doesn't have a lot of accessories. No, he doesn't have really any accessories other than the figure that you're looking at. But where he makes up for it is size. Now, your material that they went with for Ultron here is also plastic. I would have loved to have seen this guy released in die-cast treatment, but factoring already that he is as tall as he is, and then adding on top of that the fact that he would have been a metal release, he certainly would have been a more expensive figure. Ultimately going with the route of plastic, I think, is a smarter route to go. It still keeps the figure relatively at a good cost that collectors can go and pick this guy up without breaking the bank. He's just, again, a phenomenal figure. Wish he was metal, but happy, though, that he's released in plastic. One of the cool little details I like about the figure as well is that he has individually articulated fingers. They're articulated not only in the tip, the mid-knuckle, and lower knuckle of the hand, and then he also has articulation in the thumb area as well. So, because he has only really one hand, I like the fact that at least they gave it articulation. Speaking of articulation on this guy, Ultron's articulation is a little limited on the head end of it. One of the reasons for it is, if you look around to the back of the figure, the head is attached to this kind of rubber, almost vertebrae spine. So when you rotate the head, you're basically rotating stuff that's going with it as well. You don't want to rotate it too far, as it's adding a lot of stress to these little rubber side spinal cord areas, or the equivalent of what a spinal cord would be on Ultron. So he's a little limited in that scope of his articulation. Shoulders, on the other hand, though, you get a wide range of motion, not only forward, back, and out. You can see also the whole time that I'm moving his shoulder pads also are moving along with it too. It's providing zero in the way of resistance, and thank goodness for that, because I hate to have it to the point where when you're moving the figure, this is just actually the battery compartment for the arm, when you rotate the figure, you'd hate to think that the arm is restricted at all by the sheer fact that his torso is just as broad as it is. But one thing, though, you do notice, or I've noticed on the figure, is when you start rotating or moving the arms, these little interior plates that cover over the battery covers, they do tend to pop off. So just be aware of that. The arms are on nice ratcheted joints, or at least the elbow end of it. They're on nice ratcheted joints. He has, as we've already discussed, a rotation and hinge in the hand, as well as those individually articulated fingers. I really like that. And there goes that battery cover again. I wish the battery compartment was actually magnetized rather than just on the two clips that are keeping everything together. Your torso, really, there's a little bit of a ratcheted joint in the torso. It's not really much, though. But at least he more than makes up for it in leg articulation, with the legs being able to forward move, back, out, back. He does have a double hinge knee. And finally, when it comes to his feet are on a ball joint with, might I also add, hinges on the toes. Ultron's got hinges on the toes. For the Avengers Age of Ultron figure from the folks over at Hot Toys, the figure turned out pretty good. It's got a few hiccups. I won't lie to you, it's got a few little hiccups. The battery compartment on the interior of the arms are probably my number one. I wish that they didn't pop off as easily as they did, but overall, really, the figure is quite good. I always wanted to get an Ultron, and seeing pictures, initial prototype pictures of what that figure was going to look like. I think it met everything that I wanted this figure to be. I wish he was a little bit heavier, being that he would have been more metal than plastic, but understanding the fact that the figure is as tall as he is, that would certainly make for this figure being a much more expensive release. And I'm glad that they ended up ultimately giving us this guy in plastic rather than metal. The Iron Men are metal, but keep in mind too how much shorter Iron Man is. The cost of this guy being in metal would have been a little bit more expensive. Speaking of picking this guy up though, if you guys are interested in getting Ultron, as mentioned, he's going to be released next month. The end of this month, next month. If you guys are interested in picking this guy up for yourself, you can head over to Sideshow Collectibles and you can pre-order this guy today. The beauty of this guy as well as other pieces on Sideshow Collectibles is that you can also pay with installment plans. If you don't want to get this guy in one lump sum, that's okay. You can pay with little installments, and when everything is paid off and everything is right and it's red, this guy gets delivered right to your house. And you guys can have this guy on display, towering over the other Avengers. Today's collectible spot, we were having a look at the Hot Toys Avengers Age of Ultron. We're looking at Ultron Prime, the 6th scale figure. Stay tuned, guys. Spot's going to have more collectible spots heading your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.